In a small monastery hidden among the northern mountains, there lived a young apprentice named Ren. He was diligent, humble, and always eager to learn, but his mind was restless. He couldn't understand why some things, seemingly unjust or senseless, happened without explanation. One afternoon, while cleaning the meditation hall, he accidentally tripped over a very old ceramic bowl that was resting on a shelf. The bowl fell to the ground and shattered. Terrified, he gathered the pieces with trembling hands. It was Master Kogen's favorite bowl, used every morning to serve tea during the teachings. With a heavy heart, Run brought the fragments to the master and fell to his knees. "Master, I'm sorry. It was an accident. There's no excuse." The elderly man looked at the pieces without changing his expression. Then, in a gentle voice, he asked, "Why do you think this has happened?" Filled with guilt, Ren replied, "Because of my clumsiness, master. I have been careless." Kogen nodded slightly and, after a long silence, said, "Perhaps, or perhaps the bowl had already fulfilled its purpose." Ren looked up, puzzled. Sometimes, the master continued, what breaks points to the beginning of something we cannot yet understand. That night, Ren couldn't sleep. The words of Master Kogen echoed in his mind. Perhaps the bowl had already fulfilled its purpose. How could a broken object still have meaning, a hidden purpose? It seemed like a kind way to console him, but he couldn't fully understand it. The next morning, the master didn't use another bowl for tea. Instead, he asked Run to accompany him on a walk through the nearby forest. They walked in silence for quite some time, until they reached a clearing where moss covered the stones and the air smelled of pine and damp earth. Kogen stopped next to a fallen tree and bent down to observe a small sprout growing right next to the dead trunk. "Do you see that sprout?" he asked without looking at it. It was born thanks to the light that this tree let through when it fell. Without its fall, it would remain asleep under the shadow. Ren nodded silently, beginning to sense something. The master stood up, and they continued walking. Later, stopping on a rock by the stream, Kogen took a small cloth bag from his robe. "These are the fragments of the bowl," he said. "I want you to keep them. Don't discard them. One day you'll understand what to do with them." Ren took them with respect, though still with doubt. What value could there be in something broken? "Things," Kogen said as they watched the water flow, "don't happen to punish us or to please us. They happen simply because they must. Our task is to discover the why, not immediately, but with patience." The days passed, and Ren continued with his tasks at the monastery, but something had changed. He no longer saw events as random accidents or punishments of fate. He was beginning to wonder, with genuine curiosity, what could be hidden behind each moment, even the simplest ones. One rainy afternoon, while sweeping the inner courtyard, he heard a muffled cry. He ran toward the sound and found one of the older monks, Brother Jikai, lying on the ground with a pained expression on his face. He had slipped on a loose tile and twisted his ankle. Without hesitation, Ren helped him up and took him inside. For weeks, he took care of him, bringing him food, helping him dress, and sitting to talk with him. "I never imagined that being broken on the outside would allow me to heal on the inside," Jikai said one day. "Thank you for your company, Ren. This forced stillness has taught me to listen, something I didn't know how to do before." Ren smiled softly. Suddenly, he remembered the broken bowl. He brought it to his mind as if it had a new light. That accident had been the spark that led him to go out, to walk with the master, to receive the bag with the fragments. And now, along that same path, he was here, beside someone who needed exactly what he could offer: presence and care. Perhaps the bowl had already fulfilled its purpose. Perhaps, he thought, the purpose of the bowl was to break. Ren began to carry the bag with the fragments of the bowl wherever he went. Not out of obligation, but out of respect. He felt that, somehow, these broken pieces were a map, a silent reminder that beauty and meaning are not always visible at first glance. One day, while cleaning a storage room, he found an old, forgotten box. Inside were ancient pottery tools, brushes, dry glazes, and a small bottle of golden powder. It was urushi, the resin used in the art of kintsugi, a Japanese technique that repairs broken objects by joining their fragments with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, it highlights them, making them part of the object's story. Ren stood still, as if the universe were speaking to him in a soft voice. He rushed to show his discovery to Master Kogen. The elderly man smiled and nodded without surprise. "You found the next step," he said, "not because you were looking for it, but because you were ready to see it." In the following weeks, Ren learned to join the pieces of the bowl with patience, one by one, without forcing anything. Each crack told a story. Every fragment had a precise shape, as if the breaking had been part of a hidden design from the beginning. When he finished, the bowl shimmered with golden scars that didn't hide its history but honored it. "Now," said the master, "it is not just a bowl. It is a mirror." Ren understood, not because it had been explained to him, but because something inside him already knew it. The restored bowl was placed in the meditation hall. It was no longer used for tea or flowers. It simply sat there silently, as a discreet yet powerful presence. Visitors looked at it with curiosity, and some asked about its golden scars. Ren never offered a concrete answer. He smiled gently and said, "That bowl knows more than I could explain." As time passed, more things began to break in the life of the young monk. A close friend decided to leave the monastery. Another fell seriously ill. And once, an unexpected fire ravaged part of the west wing of the temple, leaving ashes where there had once been calm. But Ren no longer reacted the way he had before. Each time something broke or was lost, his first question was no longer "Why me?" but "What does this want to show me?" Master Kogen, observing his transformation, said one day, "You've learned to see with the eyes of the heart. You no longer fear breakages because you've understood that everything that breaks also opens a door." Ren nodded. He knew that losses, mistakes, and accidents were not obstacles. They were signs, clues, as if the universe spoke in a different language, a language made of silences, pauses, and necessary fractures. And like the bowl, he too was beginning to shine, not despite his cracks, but because of them. On a cloudy morning, Ren was sent to a nearby temple to deliver a message. The journey was long, passing through forests, rivers, and small villages. Along the way, he came across a farmer whose cart had become stuck in the mud. Without hesitation, Ren took off his shoes and helped push until the wheels were freed. "Thank you, young man," said the farmer, panting. "What brings you here?" Ren briefly explained his mission, and the man nodded. "Things always happen for a reason," he added with a smile. "If my cart hadn't gotten stuck, I wouldn't have met the monk who helped me without expecting anything in return." Ren continued on his way, reflecting on what had been said. What seemed like a detour, a delay, was actually part of the journey. Nothing was out of place, even if it wasn't always evident. Upon arriving at the neighboring temple, he was greeted with courtesy and gratitude. But before he left, the abbot stopped him. "Young Ren, could you stay a couple of days? Our master has fallen ill, and we need someone to guide the meditation. We've heard good things about you." Ren hesitated for a moment. He was not a master, just an apprentice. But he remembered Kogen's words, and also the farmer's. "Everything happens for a reason," he agreed. During those days, he shared simple teachings, stories, and the tale of the golden bowl. And the most curious thing was that, by speaking of it, he understood himself even more. When Ren returned to the monastery, he was greeted warmly. Master Kogen watched him from the porch with his usual calm smile. "What have you learned in your absence?" he asked as they walked through the garden. Ren thought for a few moments before responding. That one doesn't need to understand the whole map to know that they are walking in the right direction. That even the unexpected is part of the journey. And that it's not always necessary to see the meaning of things when they happen. Kogen nodded serenely. The universe doesn't shout its answers. It whispers, sometimes with a break, other times with a delay, an encounter or a loss. Everything is woven with invisible threads, which are only revealed when we stop fighting against what is. Run stopped in front of the golden bowl, now bathed in the light of the setting sun. He no longer saw it as a broken object, not even as a lesson. He felt it as a faithful mirror of the human heart, full of marks, of wounds, of stories, and yet whole, more whole than ever. "Master," he said with a peace he hadn't felt before, "I think I'm beginning to understand." Kogen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then there's nothing more to understand." They both stood in silence. The wind blew softly, and in that moment, without the need for words, Ren felt that everything, each mistake, each pain, each fragment, had brought him exactly to that point. Years passed. Ren, now a master, sat beneath the same eaves where Kogen used to observe the world with eyes of eternity. Many came to listen to him, seeking answers, relief, or guidance. And although he had learned many things, his deepest teaching remained a simple story, the story of the broken bowl. One day, a young apprentice stumbled and broke a small wooden figurine during the temple's chores. Ashamed, she went to confess her mistake to Master Ren. He listened to her in silence, then stood up, went to a shelf, and handed her a bag with ancient fragments. "This too was an accident," he said, "but it ended up becoming the most precious thing in the temple." The young woman looked at him, confused. Ren smiled. "Sometimes what seems like a mistake is just part of a design we can't yet see. Everything happens for a reason. We don't always understand why. But if we walk with an open heart, life will reveal it to us, just when we are ready." That night, as the golden bowl rested in the shadows of the hall, a gust of wind gently moved the curtain. The moonlight fell on its cracks as if the universe, in its wordless language, confirmed. Nothing was in vain. Everything fit. Everything had its place.